Here we are. We're back. Hello, everyone. Very rarely do we have something like this, so apologies for the little tech
Producer
hiccup.
lady was too busy hanging out on the beach.
I don't think anybody's hanging out on the beach on the East Coast this week, even down in this neck of the woods. It is freaking cold. So we will have Mike Massey on very soon. Good work by AJ. Oh, there he is. He's ready to go.
There he is.
Mike, great to have you on. Hey.
Thank you. Yes.
Kratz does this all the time, so I just wanted to.
Yeah. We have something in common.
There you go. How was some time with AJ this past weekend? How was your experience?
I really enjoyed it. I think I like spending time with Gene Honda a little bit more though, AJ, but it was cool. I told him I was a huge fan of the 2005 White Sox team, so I said if Scott Braun would have been there, it would have been my childhood dream.
Yes. Well, Scotty Pods.
I mean, listen, here's the problem I have.
He's dreamy.
He is dreamy. He's much more dreamy than all of us combined.
He wore the socks up. He had the eye black. That's why I do it to this day. I wear my up. I wear the eye black. Scotty Pods, man.
Now all you need is a thumb, a hand protector that's like 12 inches long, because he was the first one to ever have one. And it was before they had the standard oven mitts. He had one that literally was like this much farther. He was like, woo!
It was a cast. It was a cast.
Yes.
He was ahead of the times. He was ahead of replay. He knew that if he got that thing in there, he'd be called safe.
That's good. That's well placed. So is that who you modeled your game after, though, when you were a kid at least? Were you like, I want to be like Scott Podsednik?
I tried to hit more homers than Scotty Pods, but definitely, yeah, I enjoyed, honestly, that whole team. I loved watching you guys play, and like the intensity and the fire that you guys had and that Ozzie had as a manager was just so fun to watch and try to model my game after.
I was going to say, he hits way more homers than Pods went the whole year in 2005 and didn't hit one until the playoffs, the whole season. And then he hit two in the playoffs. One of them was a walk-off in the World Series. Think about that. The guy didn't hit a homer all year.
It wasn't part of his game.
He could hit homers, though. He could if he wanted to.
So it was like Ichiro?
He wasn't that good, but he wasn't that good.
Not at all.
And by the way, the fact that Mike said Gene Honda was a bigger deal than me does not hurt my feelings at all, because if you don't know Gene Honda, the announcer for every major sporting event in the world, and if you've never hung out with Gene Honda, he's a clown.
Yeah.
Full-on clown.
In a good way, though.
In a good way. No, I mean,
funny.
I love him to death, but he is one of my favorite people on earth. So, I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you, Michael.
It was so fun to get to know him when, like, every game I'd go to as a kid, my brother and I, like, we'd be like, gosh, that guy's there again. Like, we'd go to an Illinois football game, he'd be announcing. He'd go to a White Sox game, you hear him. He'd go to a Blackhawks game, you hear, like, what does this guy do? Like, he doesn't sleep.
So did when you got drafted by the Royals, did like the 10 to 12-year-old you, was he mad at you? Because when I got drafted by the Blue Jays, they had beaten my Phillies in 13 in the World Series, and I was like, golly, I wanted to get drafted so bad, and the Blue Jays drafted me, like the one team that I hate.
Well, the first thing I thought of was my entire childhood just hearing Hawk Harrelson every time there'd be a blue pit from Kansas City, just go, hey, here's another Kansas City special. So that was literally the first thing that went through my head. But no, I was just listening to the interview you guys had before, and talking about Carter with his back issues, and I had a ton of back issues out of college. So honestly, I was grateful that one of the 30 teams decided to take a chance on me.
You trust me, Kratz. He's living up to it, because apparently all I heard on Sunday night was how he destroys the White Sox. And so he had, what'd you have, 14 homers and 12 of them were against the White Sox in 13 games or something crazy this year. So he's living out his fantasy in a different way.
There was a stretch, like, really, not that I'm deep into my career, but really early on, I had like half of my career homers against them, and I couldn't tell you why. I love going back home and playing there, and I don't know if I just got like an extra shot of focus or whatnot, but I wasn't complaining about it.
Or the team stinks. One of the two. Sorry, I said it, not you, Michael.
I didn't say it.
That was Erik Kratz. Erik Kratz said that with an assist. AJ texted me that. That's what he texted me, so I was just reading the text.
I mean, In fairness, it's not like you're giving bulletin board material. They had the worst record of all time. Like, that's just facts. And to spin it to your team, Mike, the Royals had a really crappy record 2 seasons ago, and then they turned it around. There was some type of history involved. I think first team to go 100+ losses and then make the playoffs the following year, which your manager, and I actually believe him, claimed he didn't even know that until he was told at some point in the playoffs. So how do you do it? For White Sox fans, how do you do it? Royals, like, you're one of the few that can tell us how it's done.
Yeah, I think a lot of it obviously is just a testament to our coaching staff and Q and Paul Hoover, Vance Wilson, our hitting guys, Joe Dillon, Alex Zumwalt, Keone Durin. Just their ability. I feel like it really started at the end of that year where we lost 106 games in 23. I feel like most teams maybe cash it in September when you have a record like that. And Q did an unbelievable job of. He came in beginning of September and he was like, "Hey, we're not going to let this month go to waste." Like his big saying was today. Like, don't wait to make changes in the off season. Don't wait to make them next year. Like, we have a month of games left. Yeah, they don't mean anything as far as getting to the playoffs and going to the World Series, but we can make adjustments and make changes and be able to carry momentum into 24. And I feel like that's really where it started. And then we came into spring training, and I feel like everyone believed in that clubhouse. I know it sounds cliche, but bringing in some of the veterans that we did with Waka, Lugo, Will Smith, Adam Frazier, those guys were huge for us in really changing our mentality. And I really feel like all it took was a little bit of belief, a little bit of belief from us. And it played out well. We stayed healthy for the most part. Our pitching staff stayed healthy, and all it takes is once we kind of found out, like, hey, man, we can do this thing, which I feel like was probably mid-May, where we really started to catch some fire, and from there, the rest is history.
Can other teams do this? Right now.
Wait,
what was the picture?
Kratz, you cut him off. What?
Go ahead.
I saw the picture of George Brett up there with my wife and I when we were celebrating in Atlanta. It was a good picture. Was
your wife in the clubhouse spraying champagne with everybody? I saw her with a Budweiser there.
He was in there spraying champagne. That is actually another reason why I think we're able to turn it around from a culture perspective. Like, and I've never been a part of another organization, but the way that Kansas City treats families, like my parents were in when we won in Baltimore. All the parents were allowed in. And obviously we had our moment with the team where it was just us, but then like literally 5 minutes after, Kansas City let our families come in and celebrate with us. And just the culture that those guys have built there is awesome.
Hey, Mike, I saw George Brett in New York. I was in New York doing the Mets, Phillies, and you guys were in the same hotel as we were. And I'm just going to say George Brett was about as excited as I've ever seen him. We're going to use that term for what George Brett was, but he was not a sad person. And I had to finally just say, George, I got to go to bed, man. It's like 2 a.m. And he was going strong.
Oh, God, he is. If you give me a chance to tell you a George Brett story, I could tell you one for sure. That would.
As long as it's allowed to be told. Okay, then go ahead. We have all the time in the world.
Yeah, so it's so this goes back to 2023 in April. It's my first full season in the big leagues. I had like a second half call up in 22. It's probably April 30th. We're in Minnesota, and I'm hitting about $130. And I think my strikeout to walk ratio is 30 strikeouts with 1 pitch violation walk I had the day before. It was a 3-2 count, and the clock ran out. So I got my first walk of the year. And again, we were struggling. We win the game in Minnesota. We're celebrating. I think my teammates gave me player of the game because I took a walk. So I just got done giving a speech to the team. I go back, look at my phone, and I have a text from a number I don't recognize. And the first sentence is, "Hey, this is George Brett." And he just goes on like George normally does, and he speaks his mind and tells me what he thinks of my April performance, and really beat around the bush like he always does, made a nice soft landing, didn't fire me up at all. And so that night I go, first thing I do actually is I take the message and I send it to my family group chat. I'm like, guys, check this out. Like, George Brett is texting me about how bad I'm playing. Like, this is sick. Like my dad was a George Brett. That was his favorite player growing up. So like my first reaction, I'm like, this is sick. George Brett's texting me. I don't even care what he's saying. And I didn't realize that like the number at the top, I hadn't had George's number, so the phone number was up there. And so again, long story short, we go to that night, the Minnesota Wild are home. They're playing the Dallas Stars in the NHL playoffs. So I go with a couple teammates. I get a call from our travel coordinator, who's one of the best guys in the world. And phone's ringing. I'm like, great. I'm getting sent down. I'm hitting 130. Team's struggling. So I go take his call in the concourse, and he's like, hey man, I'm so sorry about what happened. I'm like, what are you talking about? And he's like, I saw what George sent you, and he got after you pretty good. Told you got to start hitting the ball to left center. You got to stop swinging at sliders in the dirt. He's like, I even saw that he said you should be in AAA the way you're playing right now. Actually, it was AA. He said you should be in AA. And he's like, I'm so sorry. I'm the one. I gave George your number, and I thought he was just going to send you a text to like fire you up and get you going. But I asked him. I said, hey, what'd you send him? And he sent me the text verbatim, like what he sent you. And I'm like, oh man, I got to call him. So I went from being released to our travel coordinator apologizing for him giving George Brett my number. But my dad, I find out like 2 days later, my dad called George Brett and told him like, hey, George, he played like the tough guy on the phone. He's like, hey man, if it's best if we don't ever meet. Like I saw the text you sent to my son, and it's best if we don't meet. And I'm like, my dad called George Brett on the phone and basically told him he was going to fight him the next time he saw him. And the most embarrassing thing for me, and my teammates are razzing me. They're like, hey, your dad's calling George Brett. And so it's a really interesting thing because George and I are unbelievable friends now. He actually, when we won in Baltimore, none of the parents were allowed in for like the champagne shower with the team. George went out and grabbed my dad and brought him into the clubhouse. And now he FaceTimed my dad at my wedding, and I love George, and I've gotten to know him really well. But it is an interesting story how we met.
I mean, okay. First of all, I don't even know where to start with this. Right. George Brett texts you, fine. AA? He didn't even go AAA on you. He went AA, so you should be in AA. Which, wow, okay, George. I would have fired back like, hey, George, do you need some pine tar? Like, I don't know. Like, just spitballing here, Georgie. George, then your dad calls him and is like, George, we're going to fight. So your dad challenged George Brett to a fight, which is also amazing.
Yes.
There's so many levels of this story.
But now they're best friends.
I know, but the traveling secretary called you and apologized. The travel coordinator for giving. So that would be like if the White Sox travel guy, and I'm trying to think of like, I don't know, Frank Thomas or somebody from the White Sox, like, hey, I need AJ's number. The travel guy's not going to be like, no.
Right.
But then I love the fact that he sent him the text and he's like, oh man, I'm so sorry. Like he berated you. So he treated you like a little child. He was like, Mike, just no. But then, that's an unbelievable story. I love
the
it.
amount of emotions I had in like a 3-day span between one, just trying to get a hit in the big leagues. 2, George Brett telling me I should be in AA. 3, the travel coordinator calling me at a hockey game, and I'm like, I'm going to get sent down, but then he ends up apologizing. And then 4, I find out my dad called Hall of Famer George Brett and said he was going to fight him the next time he saw him. It was a good week for sure.
Did you respond? Like, did you send George like a thanks or I appreciate it or like piss off nerd?
No, so I did. I kind of got after him a little bit. I was like, hey, George, we're not all Hall of Famers. Like, I can't it's not that easy for me to just poke the ball to left center like you could. And then we kind of went back and forth, and it was a funny interaction. But George is, and I tell the story because of how close I am with George now. And I think anybody that knows George Brett, like at the time, I just didn't really understand. Like nothing he said was wrong. Like I was playing horrendous. But knowing like now that I know George, it's like that was so character. Like he doesn't beat around the bush. He tells you how it is, and And like, if you don't like it, take a hike. And like, I kind of respect it. And that's why I think we're such good friends now. But it was a fun time for sure.
Did you tell Davy that he is never ever getting another tip for your entire career with the Royals?
No, that man, did he yeah, I'm glad you know he was the one that was involved, but he yeah, he's one of the greatest guys ever. And like I said, I literally thought he was calling me to like, hey man, here's your flight arrangement back to Omaha, or as George said, Northwest Arkansas. Um, and I was fully prepared for it. But no, he was super cool about the whole thing. But it was funny.
Did you have to go to your dad? So the first time, let's say the next time, I don't know when the next time your dad was in town, but did you have to make sure that there was like a referee there in case something did break out with like, measured gloves, and you had scales so they could weigh in and we
And
could
is
do a
Dad
tail of the
jacked?
tape before they threw down?
Is that strong?
I'll tell you, they definitely would not have been in the same weight class. That's for sure. My dad's got a nice gut. AJ, you saw.
I saw him, yeah.
He likes his. He's from Chicago. He likes a nice beef sandwich and some pizza, and so the weight class, yeah, definitely would have been a bit of a difference there. But no, I would have loved to see it. Like, hey, you're going to talk, like let's settle it out.
All right, well, thin crust or deep dish? Let's get to the real nuts and bolts of the Chicago lifestyle here.
I mean, if I said thin crust, I'd be thrown out of Chicago tomorrow.
What? No, you wouldn't. That would mean you're from Chicago. No Chicago person likes deep dish.
Where did you hear
Tavern
that?
style. Tavern style, thin crust. Let's go. All day.
I would actually, honestly, if Sicilian cut is an option, which is in the middle of thin crust and deep dish, that's my sweet spot.
Okay. So you like the Detroit kind of style, the squares and like that kind of pizza?
Yeah, I mean, the cut is the cut, but the crust is like Baracca. You ever had Baracos when you were here?
No, I never had that one.
That's Baracos, Palermo's. Those are some like old school South Side good pizza joints. I wouldn't even call it a restaurant. It's a joint.
Mike, tell him you're actually from Chicago. AJ's fake Chicago. He's not real Chicago. He's just like a permanent visitor that you just can't get rid of.
Oh, he's grandfathered in. I'll give him that. He's grandfathered in.
That's right.
Forever.
That's right. Forever.
Forever. He's
As long as
been long enough.
As long as that trophy's there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right, one more baseball question on the way out here,
What?
because
I said why? We're having so much fun talking pizza now. I'm hungry.
Well, I'm hungry and I can't eat for an hour. Are you gonna potentially play multiple positions this coming season? What's the deal? Obviously, India's added. You guys got a little extra player for the offense. So, what's the story? Like when that happened, how are you preparing? And did they call you about it?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I don't know 100% yet. I know we've had some conversations about definitely working out in left field just to get comfortable and have that in my back pocket. Q definitely likes to make a lot of roster moves in game, whether it's double switches or pinch hitting, defensive replacement. So right now, and it goes back to my back injury in the past too, where for me defense is usually harder than hitting. So even if I'm in a little bit of a back flare up, I can always hit. So like last year when I came back, I would DH a little bit, but having Salvi and Vinny, I'm just most of the time I'm not going to win that battle with actually all the time. I'm not going to win that battle with those two. So, and basically the only position I play is second base. So being able to be a little bit more versatile and in spring training, maybe pop out to the outfield and, just learn how to take some different angles out there, catch some fly balls and, just give the team some more versatility. I feel like I'm excited to have Jonathan India come in and, he's a great hitter. I've heard he's a great teammate. So the more good players we can have, the better record we're going to have and the better chance we're going to have to win, which is pretty much all anybody cares about, I feel like at that level. So, I'll pop out there, get some work. And, as far as the day-to-day goes, I'm not 100% sure. But as long as I'm in the lineup and I have a chance to hit, that's all that matters to me.
Michael, recently you went to an Illinois football game. And you got to play. You got to. Was it the air? What do you call that thing?
Annoying noise.
They're trying too hard with that one. It's like an air horn, is what they call it, I think.
So, is it like an air raid siren? And it looks like you're tired after playing that thing.
Well, they put it on like a cabinet that like is on wheels. So you try to crank, and the thing is old, so it doesn't crank very easily. So you really got to crank it. And before I go out there, the guy's like, "Hey, make sure you keep your foot on the back so that it doesn't slide out from under you." So I'm like, "Great, thanks for the advice." In front of 60,000 people, I'm going to crank this air horn, and this thing's going to slide out, and I'm going to fall. So I got my leg like wrapped around the back, which they don't show, and then I'm trying to crank it so it starts tilting to the left a little bit. But I'm not quite sure what they're doing with that one. But
is that there? Are you? Is it true that you are for faking injuries as a football team? Is that true? That I heard all Illini fans are for faking injuries.
This is the Brett Bielema.
Yeah, did you see that? He came over to Shane Beamer and was like, "You want some of this cock? I'll come get you some of that cock over there."
That was sick. I was actually watching that game, and there was a clip where they showed Bielema where he was just laughing on the sideline. Like, I'd never watched a South Carolina game, but that was crazy. Yeah, and he walk over and gave it's like the substitution sign, which is what they kept doing. Like, they kept waiting to run the play clock down. No, we're not for faking injuries. We're just for playing the game. Be smart. If you're not cheating, you're not trying.
Yeah, if there's a problem, change
Scott's
the rule.
like, what are we talking about?
Yeah, I don't know what you're talking about, but if there's a problem, change the rule.
They played the Gamecocks in a bowl game. Illinois did, and there was the two coaches were about to fight.
I kind of heard about
because
that.
the South Carolina guy was accusing him of faking injuries, so the coach went over there and basically got in his face while one of his players was on their sideline and was like, "What? And he gave like the substitution sign in his face, and then it turned into shenanigans.
How about if a player goes down, he's got to be out for the game or out for a quarter or whatever?
Well, you're just being.
It's the only way to avoid the faking.
All right, let's go.
All right, good talk. Michael, awesome having you on, dude. Really, really enjoyed it. We'll get you during the season, all right?
I'm honored. Thanks for having me on, guys. This is awesome.
Yeah, you were great. Yeah, appreciate you. We'll see you in spring training. Michael Massey with us on FT. Hey, what's up, FT fam? Always being transparent, especially with the YouTube crowd. Ken Rosenthal is joining us next, and there's a tech hiccup, so we're on a different stream. So if you're watching this later on and you're like, what? There was almost 1 hour and then this hour. Not that big a deal. We move on with life.
Yeah.
Yes.
He was great,
fine.
by the way. Michael
Massey was awesome. See, this is why we do this, okay? We try and bring on as many players as possible because truly I don't know how each player is going to be. You can't know all 1,000 players that touch the majors each year.
I mean, that George Brett story.
Legendary.
His dad wanted to fight George Brett. His dad called George Brett. Was like, "We're gonna throw hands."
There's so many layers. What if that was you? What if that was you and you got a text when you're a young player, a few years
from
into
George
the bigs?
Brett? I would have been like, "What do I do?" I would have gone to somebody and been like, "What do I do with this? How do I would have probably been at the hockey game that night. I would have been like analyzing what I write back to him.
Would you have?
It just would have been constant bubbles because I would have been like, nope, delete, delete, delete.
You wanted to do your pine tar joke really bad.
Oh,
you would have wanted to do it.
Oh, I would have, But you, in order to say something like that to George, you have to kind of be established.
Of course.
So Michael wouldn't establish it, so he couldn't really fire that back and be like, "Oh, I know Tim McClellan. Do you want me to get some pine tar there, George?"
I would have been wrecked. There's no way. Like, if you know you're already struggling, so you're already in your own head. And then the franchise icon takes time out, whether sober or not when he texted you, took time out to text you and berate you all the things that was already going on in your head. You're like, dang it. I'm never going to last here.
I would have said, real talk, can we go out for drinks?
And
talk this out.
And let's not forget, he had to go get his number. It wasn't like George had his number and they had talked before. He had to get his number from the travel guy, which means So he put thought into this before he did this. It wasn't like a spur of the moment thing because he had to text somebody, wait for the text back, load his number, text him the shenanigans.
I'm texting Davey right now. I can't believe you gave Massey's number to George when he was
I
not
haven't
sober.
seen that story anywhere. I think that's a story that's probably been told around town, but not publicly. And it's great. That's the kind of stories that we live for with this kind of show. That's hilarious. And also props to George Brett for caring so much about the 22 Royals. Here we go. Ken Rosenthal, Inside Scoop Time, FT Senior Insider. Let's do Hall of Fame in a moment here, Ken. I actually wanted to backtrack a moment to your article about the Dodgers situation because we haven't had you on since they signed 8 more players. So can you summarize or at least give a few points on what you said in your article in The Athletic? And I'm sure there were some fun comments going back at you.
Well, basically what I said was that every fan would want his or her team to operate the way the Dodgers are operating. And that while the Dodgers have immense financial advantages, there's no question about that, other teams should compete with the same passion to the best of their capabilities. Obviously, we know the Pittsburgh Pirates can't do what the Dodgers do. And I mentioned that, hey, there's going to be talk of a salary cap. There always is. And the fact of the matter is, if we're talking strictly about competitive balance, those leagues with caps, the NFL, the NBA, they don't have what baseball has. We haven't had a repeat champion since 1998 to 2000 with the Yankees. In the NFL, it's Mahomes or Brady in the AFC Championship game every year for like the last 15 years. So if you're talking about financial fairness, different question. And that is a question that continues to kind of haunt the game because the disparity between the haves and the have-nots just keeps increasing. But my basic premise here was, let's see more teams really try to the best of their capabilities before we have these massive complaints about the Dodgers. And the other thing is, guys, and you guys know this, it's baseball. There's no guarantee the Dodgers are going to win the World Series. The expanded playoffs have made it more difficult for teams to win the series. Can you estimate or predict that the Dodgers will win the NL West? Yeah, you probably can do that. That's been the case for a number of years now. So I understand the concern and the frustration among some fans, but at the same time, I'll go back to what I said at the beginning of that article. You wish your owner was acting the way the Dodgers owner was acting within his means.
That's my point. That's my point I've been saying since, after the Scott thing, but then the Yates thing, and everyone's complaining, like, who's going to be the team that steps up and beats them? Who's going to be the team? And I've said this for years, that in Major League Baseball, give or take every season, there's at least half the teams that aren't really trying. Now, it used to be different. Hey, we're trying to get to 500, keep our fans happy. Now teams are like, we're just not even going to try. We don't even care what the fans think anymore. So I agree with you, Ken. Who's going to be the team to step up and say, hey, we're going to try and match him, whether it's the Mets, someone else, the Padres, the Diamondbacks in the National League. And then why don't every team have to try? Like at least somewhat try. I don't know. Because it used to be like, we're not very good, but if we can get to 500, man, our fans would be pumped.
Well, and now, AJ, it should be, if we can get into the playoffs, who knows what might happen? Because there are 12 teams in the playoffs, and we have seen 2 years ago, Arizona Diamondbacks get to the World Series. Last year, the Cleveland Guardians get to the ALCS with their starting rotation, not what they intended it to be. So, again, I empathize with fans in Cleveland and Pittsburgh and Tampa Bay, and I empathize with the situations those teams are in. At the same time, and this isn't true for Cleveland, but it certainly is true for Pittsburgh. Hey, you compete to the best of your ability. Compete to the best of your financial capability. I'm not even so sure Cleveland does that. They would tell you they do. Pittsburgh would probably tell you they do as well. But until owners open their books, we don't know what exactly they're doing, and we'll never know. And they're not opening their books. So when Tom Ricketts, the Cubs owner, comes out and says, hey, we're just trying to break even. Really? I'd love to see evidence of that. I'd love to see how the Cubs are simply breaking even if they're doing that with their baseball operation. And then I would like to see what the Wrigleyville development has meant to their bottom line as well. Because guess what? That's related to owning the Cubs. And there's another point as well with the Cubs and other teams for that matter. Franchise values have skyrocketed. Now, I know that you don't budget according to your franchise value no more than a person budgets year to year based on the value of his home or her home. But at the same time, fans are tired of hearing, and I'm tired of hearing, that, oh my gosh, it's so hard. No, you're owner of one of 30 teams in a monopoly. You're doing okay.
Yeah, you can buy a team. I mean, most cases are like, you bought a team for $800 million. Now it's worth $4 billion. And if you really were in financial pain, you can take out a loan based on the valuation of the franchise. That's just normal business tactics. Just also pointed out earlier, Ken, how we have a soft cap, but we do not have a soft floor. I think that's a major issue. Right. As you know, the Pirates are profiting. They are. We got books a long time ago, and they're profiting, I think, even more nowadays. And their CEO said they're trying to win. We all know that they're not. The other part that I learned from your article was just a little history lesson, and we're not going way back here. Are you surprised that the vitriol is this fierce from so many fans? You would think that the Dodgers have just won 5 titles in a row. They won 1. They were a loss away, a Padres offense choke away from not winning this past season. They were embarrassed 2 years ago, right? They were a laughingstock 12 years ago with the Frank McCourt era, and they spent plenty of money. And some of their core that led them to this World Series could have easily been kept on their respective franchises. Freddie Freeman and Mookie Betts, they could have been locked up for long term by those teams. So I just started doing homework on what you were putting down and like kind of adding to it. And I'm like, damn, a million things have come together for them to win this one full season World Series, and people are losing their mind.
That's right. And that's the nature of the world we live in today. People lose their minds on social media because they have the ability to do so. 20 years ago, there was no outlet, and maybe that wasn't so great either because people didn't have the ability to speak out, but it gets a little ridiculous now, and it's a mob mentality, and we don't need to go through that. One thing I want to come back to, Scott, on the point of the luxury tax and the possibility of a similar mechanism at the bottom of the payroll structure as there is at the top. You can't tell me, from a simple fairness perspective, that that isn't the right thing to do for this sport. We're not getting a cap. And the owners, if they're going to push for a cap, and I know they're going to push for a cap, they do it every CBA. Okay, you want to have a work stoppage after building some positive momentum, back-to-back years of increasing attendance? Be my guest. That would be the dumbest thing the sport could do. But how about making the penalties that much harsher at the top and instituting a series of penalties at the bottom? So if, for instance, the Pirates go under a certain payroll level, let's say 100 million just for the sake of discussion, maybe 120. Then you lose draft picks, you pay money, whatever the penalties you want to institute might be. That to me is a solution. And that way, if you had that, maybe if you want to increase revenue sharing and tell the big market teams, listen guys, we're going to do this, you'd have a better case. Because in that situation, you would know the money would be spent. Right now, if I'm the Yankees, and the Dodgers and the Mets and the Phillies and all these teams paying into the revenue sharing system, I would be ticked off by what I'm seeing. And this has been the case not just this offseason, but for a number of years, really decades in this sport.
All teams want the other teams to be good, but all teams should want to beat every other team. So I completely agree with what you're saying. Can we hit on the Kirby Yates? Like we've heard they're in deep discussion. Does anything have to do with possibly the fact that there's no room on the 40-man roster and like a move like this has to be manipulated to be able to put him on the roster because they're kind of pressed right now?
Yes, it's possibly that, Eric, but it's also possibly Kirby Yates has to take his physical. And in 2021, that offseason, he had issues with 2 of his physicals and wound up not signing with the Braves was one, and I can't remember the other. So obviously when you have a physical in question, you want to make sure the results are good and you're comfortable with the contract. But yes, they do have a 40-man issue, and it's possible they're trying to make a trade right now or work out some other creative solution to create the spot for Kirby Yates. I would imagine that it's kind of both those things, but I don't know for sure.
So, Ken, is this going to get done? Do we think this is going to get done, or did you guys prematurely tweet this?
AJ, all I tweeted prematurely was that they were in serious discussions. There's no dispute about that. They're in serious discussions. I did not report it was done.
Okay, because there was many times where you would call me and ask me where I was signing, and I told you I couldn't tell you until the physical was done, and you never prematurely tweeted anything. You just prematurely cursed me out on a text message.
I don't believe I ever cursed you out, but yeah, live in your own head, AJ. That's cool.
Create your narratives. All right, two more things to cover with you, Ken. We'll finish with Hall of Fame, but before that, we haven't had you on since we talked about the Rays storyline that you put out there and their complicated situation with what's next. I just want you to also mix in, if you can, the note that I learned about through your story, which is that the A's have this flip tax if they sell the team too soon after going to Vegas. I had some A's fans text me very upset and asked if I could follow up with you because they were like, I thought that John Fisher, if he does somehow get this team to Vegas, will then just sell the team because he, raised his franchise value. And now it sounds like he'd wait 10 years so that he doesn't get taxed as much on the sale.
He can sell the team, but yes, there would be a tax that would be implemented immediately. I believe it goes through 2029 at a certain level, and then it diminishes each year. So the incentive to sell would be greater in the latter years of that 10-year commitment. But baseball did that because it did not charge him a relocation fee, and yet he is taking an expansion market, and they didn't want to simply have him go in there and flip the team based on, hey, I've got a better franchise value now, let's go. So that is what that was all about.
All right, I'll go to the Rays because you're talking about the A's and them, but the Rays are in a very similar, odd situation. They haven't started on their new ballpark yet. They haven't fixed the old ballpark yet. Now, they got the bonds okayed by the city, but isn't there something on Stu Sternberg's side that there's people, I don't know if they don't know if he has the money because he has to cover at least half of the stadium and the area around it. And there's people saying he might not have the capital to cover that, or what's going on with the Rays? Because I've heard kind of different stories here.
Well, the Rays' perspective is that the bond vote was delayed because of the hurricane. And because it was delayed, that pushes back construction of the new ballpark, and they lose a year. That's their perspective. It turned out the delay was only 6 weeks, but they're saying they lose a year. And they're responsible for cost overruns. And basically, it's going to cost more money if it takes another year. And their position is, we're not doing that. We don't want to do that. We want more money. We know we're responsible, but we want some help from the local entities before we commit to that. So that's the dispute that's going on right now. What I wrote was simply that if Stu Sternberg can't get this deal done in St. Pete, and then he can't get the team to Tampa through hold on. Let's go back. What I wrote was, if he can't get the team done or the deal done in St. Pete, then he should sell to interests that would move the team to Tampa. MLB does not want to leave the market. They want to stay in Tampa Bay. They believe, rightly or wrongly, right? We don't know for sure, but they believe that it's a vibrant and growing market and a good market for Major League Baseball. But most people think that the better place for the team is in Tampa. And we may see some evidence of that this year when they play at Steinbrenner Field, albeit in a minor league facility. So that was the point of what I wrote. Listen, if he can't get the deal done in St. Pete, enough. Get the team to Tampa. There are people who want to buy the team, and put it in the market where it should be in the first place and go about it that way.
Orlando.
Your reaction.
Orlando.
Okay. The face, the ugly face of Orlando.
Orlando.
AJ.
Just saying, Orlando would be perfect.
Ugly.
Orlando.
Yeah, we look like Disney. All right, go Kratz. Last question.
Actually, Tampa would be much more realistic for those who live in Orlando. Now, granted, the I-4 between Orlando and Tampa is a lot of traffic, always. But at the same time, Tampa is more centrally located in that region to attract fans from St. Petersburg and Orlando, as difficult as it might be to get to the park. That's why St. Petersburg has never really worked. Well, one reason. A person from Orlando is not going to go. It's too far.
True. But you know what? You know what's really great for people in Orlando? They built the stadium in Orlando. Plus, you get Disney people, you get Universal people, you get SeaWorld people, you get people on the coast. People from Tampa can make that miserable drive over.
Most tourists in the country.
But by far. The one thing I will say about Vegas compared to Orlando, they're like, oh, the tourists in Vegas. Do you know that Orlando has double the amount of tourists that Vegas gets? Double. Vegas gets like 40 million. Orlando gets over 80 million every year, right? And
you know what, Scott? I am so happy
we have
to be
something
on with the president of the Orlando Chamber of Commerce. It's amazing.
And we have something here.
Chat with him.
Ken, we have something here called the tourist tax, where we have plenty of money to go around to build a stadium. Plenty of money.
Ken, I sit next to him every day. Trust me, I know more facts about Orlando than everyone except for AJ at this point. So
You're a resident now, Scott.
I am a resident.
Thank you.
I'm
you
sold.
Should be rooting for this also.
Florida taxes, baby. All right, Kratz, you're last.
No state income tax.
Some people want to know the one voter. Should fans get to know who the one voter is? And what's your reaction to the single voter that did not vote for Ichiro?
Erik, I'm glad you asked this, and I have strong feelings about it in a number of ways. One, obviously, it goes without saying that it's ridiculous that even one voter did not vote for Ichiro. Whether it's a man, a woman, whoever it might have been, I'd like to hear the justification for that. There is no justification. The only logic, if you want to even call it logic, would be, I don't believe in any first ballot Hall of Famers. I guess. I don't understand that, and I don't know if that person would have been voting for Mariano Rivera a couple of years ago, but that part of it obviously is not great. That said, the witch hunt, or the proposed idea of a witch hunt that takes place every year when we have these things, is to me also ridiculous. And when you have a voting body of 394 people and 393 agree, that actually is pretty good. And it speaks to who Ichiro was. Does anyone really think Ichiro is sitting wherever he's sitting today, or hanging out wherever he's hanging out, wondering, man, I wonder who didn't vote for me. I wish it was 100%. It's just not good enough, 99%, 7%. No, I don't think he cares. He shouldn't care. It's ridiculous. And for this discussion to take place every year and kind of take place in a way that I wouldn't say overshadows the voting, but certainly becomes a point of conversation. We all know this is dumb. We all know the person should have voted for Ichiro, but I don't believe Derek Jeter or Ichiro or Cal Ripken, who had 8 votes that he didn't go his way, 8 voters who didn't vote for him. I don't believe those guys are diminished one bit. I don't believe they think they're diminished one bit. And I think the whole conversation gets a little silly.
I'm going to get to the bottom of it on Saturday, Ken. Don't you worry.
Yeah, right.
Every writer that's
good
at
luck.
the BBWAA,
Yeah.
I'm going to ask them on camera.
One more
Did
point
you
on
vote
this.
for Ichiro?
One more point.
Did you vote for Ichiro? Ken, did you vote for Ichiro? Ken, did you vote for Ichiro?
Yes, of course I voted for Ichiro. One more point on this. So there's been some discussion, hey, why don't you guys make your votes public? We have the option of making our votes public, and most of us do. And we have petitioned the Hall to make all of our votes public. We have asked for that, but the Hall refuses to let us do it. So when we vote for the awards, the Cy Young, the Manager of the Year, the MVP, those votes are public. There's no choice. We control that process. We don't totally control this process, and that's why it's the way it is. But that said, again, too much is made of this. We had a great day yesterday in our sport. Ichiro, CC Sabathia, and Billy Wagner went into the Hall of Fame. I wish that is what we were talking about instead of this stupid one voter, which means nothing in any real sense.
Thank you.
Conspiracy theory from Ken Rosenthal.
It is being
the Hall of Fame is
overshadowed.
rigged because they don't show the votes.
No, but
that's what I got out of what Ken just said.
It is being overshadowed because networks that never talk about baseball are spending some time on it today to do their witch hunt. And it's like, okay, cool. I'm with you. If we all ignore it, it won't be a story. So let's ignore it, besides AJ polling everyone on Saturday. All right, Ken, thank you very much. We will see you on Saturday, and we'll see you on Fair Territory later this week.
AJ, bring your pitchfork. Let's go.
All right, I got one handy. Let's go.
Let's
and his
go.
little microphone.
All right. More information for you Saturday night. Please join us on YouTube, 7:15 Eastern Time. We are going to talk to many VIPs that will be at the Baseball Writers Association New York Chapter Awards Dinner. Be there. Listen to Paul Skeens, Barry Bonds, and so many others, current and former legends. just a couple minutes, and Griffin, I think, can hear us now, so he's hanging in the green room. Thanks for waiting for a minute here, and let's shout out the Playmakers Classic, thrown together by the Players Trust. You can go smash the QR code at the bottom of your screen, as now it's coming up. We're a few weeks away, so if you'd like to attend, meet many current big leaguers, go for it. You can see more information on who's going to be there, including musical performances, food, drinks, etc., all at the Playmakers Classic website. So playerstrust.org is where you go and find out more information, including Brian Kelly from Florida Georgia Line. And it's not like he's just going to be there. He's going to perform.
Mm-hmm.
So it's pretty cool.
You're just going to be hanging out.
Hanging out and then singing.
Singing?
Yeah, both. I mean, it is one of the most casual formats party-wise that I've ever been to, where it's not like, oh, these people are roped off here and you can't get to them. It's just like, no, everyone's just walking around being normal humans, having a drink, eating, playing, whatever games are available there, right? Blackjack, stuff like that. So it's cool.
It's fun. It's a good event. It's a great event put on by, for fans, by the players, and it's for the fans, and it's to get people contact with the players, and that's what people want. They want more contact. Go to the Playmakers Classic. And
the money all goes to
charities.
Great causes, to charities. So.
Players Trust is a great organization also.
It is. We've learned a lot about it, so that's why we like to shout it out here, every week or so, to remind everyone that if you want to get involved and if you're going to be in Arizona during that time period, here's more information on your screen. Screenshot it if you'd like. Interactive games, tastings, fan gear, right? There's activation booths and setups all over the place there too. So playerstrust.org is the spot. Griffin Jax joining us next. Twin super reliever Griffin Jax joining us right now on FT. Griffin, great to have you on. Thanks for waiting for a quick moment here. How's the offseason going, man?
Yeah, thanks guys for having me. It's been a good offseason, kind of winding down. I head to Florida here in a couple of weeks, but it's been a good one.
Where are you based? Where are you based in the offseason?
Yeah, where are you at?
We live in Phoenix, which is unfortunate because I got to go to Florida for spring.
No, that's a great thing for you. Lucky. Very lucky. Very lucky you get to come to God's country.
Fort Myers.
I know. For misery.
Fort Myers.
There's a good sushi spot there. Yeah, I don't remember the name, but there's one good sushi spot.
There's one good sushi spot?
Who cares? You can hit that every other night.
When's the last time you were in Fort Myers? It's grown amazingly.
I've been in Fort Myers 15 times in the last 3 years.
It's gotten so much bigger.
Yeah.
Imagine when I was there 25 years ago, there was nothing. There was Pots right by the stadium, the chicken wing bar.
Yeah.
They still got Pots.
Up.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's gotten a lot different from 2016 for sure.
But Griffin, when you first came on, and people would have to rewind this, you were going like this right when we first came on. Are you at that point in the offseason where you're like, all right, man, I'm starting to throw, I'm kind of always giving myself a little soft tissue massage? Are you at that point, or are you like, I'm good, I don't need to be hucking the rock right now?
I think I'm just at that point in life. You're just waking up and it's not feeling as good as it used to, but whatever you got to do to throw.
Okay. True. Well, it worked.
You're a reliever. Listen, you're a reliever. Yeah. Throw some Tiger Balm on that thing, have the orange sleeve, and let's go, baby.
Oh, yeah. I got a good concoction.
You make your own. Yeah, that's what I want. You make your own concoction of hot stuff?
You know how the training room has all the different sprays and creams? I basically just go down the line, and whatever I see, I throw on the arm.
Just shoulder?
It?
Say that again?
Is it just shoulder, or you do the whole arm? Just shoulder?
Whole arm, shoulder to the wrist.
Have you bottled it? Because I know some guys will go like a little anti-inflammatory cream, a little lidocaine, and bottle it, and so they always have their own. Or do you just go down? Do you just go down like a buffet and just take a little bit of each?
I can't do the lidocaine because I need to feel my arm. I don't like the feeling of, or I guess the lack of feeling. The numb, I'm not good with. And I guess it just depends on where we are in the season. But yeah, it's basically just starting. We got this thing called cookie cream, and that's amazing. And then, yeah, some anti-inflammatory cream for sure. And usually by the time I'm sweating and it gets activated, I'm ready to go.
Now, do you go to the bullpen in like the fifth inning? Are you a fifth inning,
I usually go down to the
bullpen guy?
Duran and I go down to the fourth.
Oh, flex.
So what do you do?
With
I
the
always
closer.
This.
Wow.
Yeah.
I always want to know what the pitchers do the first 3 innings. Because I'm out there grinding, and you guys are in there in a massage chair, watching TV, sipping, seltzer water and having bonbons. Well, we're out there grinding for the first 3 innings. Tell me what you do.
Well, part of it is sort of respect for the position players because they need to get their treatment, pregame and before the game starts. So I'm waiting until they're all out, until the first inning to sort of get my hands on with a trainer. But it's some stretching, some rolling out, some extra activation stuff.
Okay.
Griffin had a good year.
I had a great year last year. Oh, had a great year.
And also, how dare you,
That was like
Kratz?
12 pitches, by the way, too.
Yeah, he does. But how dare you, Kratz? He had 10 saves last year. Okay, he did some closing as well. Yes, yes, he did.
He's not the closer. He's not the closer. Griffin, are you the closer for the Minnesota Twins?
No.
Thank you. That's it. Thank you, Scott. I know he had saves.
No, but Mike,
anybody? Go ahead.
No. Go. I was gonna wait because my thing is Duran comes in. And they have like this cool thing that comes on. They turn off the lights and everyone goes crazy. But for that time when Duran was out and Griffin was closing, did they have like airplanes fly over because of the Air Force thing? I mean, they have cool. They were dropping bombs and stuff. Like, wow. I mean, did they do a cool thing for you?
Yeah, I had a decent, show, but anything besides his is, child's play. I basically had like advertisements playing when I'm warming up, coming after him. So, yeah, it's funny. Like there could be a couple games where he would throw the 8th and I might go out there for the 9th and you get his lights out fireworks show for the 8th and then I go out and it's just kind of meh.
So this is a discussion. This is a discussion we had, and AJ completely disagreed with me. I think all relievers should have their own display. Do you agree or disagree that you should have your own, whatever you want, whatever it is that you would like?
I think every reliever should have at least like a walkout song. And every stadium operator is different, kind of just like with the pitch clock. Like there's plenty of times I've gone out there and my name doesn't get announced until I'm about to throw the first pitch. Like there's just other stuff going on, promotions, games being played in the stands. Like sometimes, it's almost like just like a reliever we're forgotten about until, we're on the mound.
Okay, so let me ask this then. So just to add to Kratz, let's say your starter goes out and has a bad start, right? You're still in the recliner in the 3rd inning, okay? But you got to bring in that long guy, and you guys are already down 6 or 7-0. Do you think that guy should have it? Because he's a reliever. Should he have an entrance like, here comes the guy to give me 5 innings and possibly gets into AAA after the game?
No, not necessarily like a light show or any sort of show, but, maybe just like a song he likes.
I can get on board with the song, but like the light show should be for the closers.
My thing though is
for sure. I'm with you on that.
Sure, but I'm going to meet in the middle here. There's a big difference between Duran's incredible entrance and here comes the 8th inning guy who sometimes also is racking up saves too, depending on the situation. And he's been lights out for us, right? And should be this fierce, intimidating entrance. And it's like, all right, let's play Twins trivia. Is it A, B, or C? Oh, and Griffin Jax is in the game. Like, I think there should be a little something for you, that it might not touch the Duran entrance, but I do think they could.
They threw some together at the end of the year, and it makes me feel a little bit better for sure. But towards the beginning, it was a little different.
It should have been for Griffin Jax. He comes in true or false. Griffin Jax hates the taste of water. True or false, Scott?
Huh?
Slander.
True.
Oh, from last time.
I'm telling you, I told him last time we had him on. They have a big thing that they told us about Griffin Jax was he hates the taste of water. I asked him last time, and he said no, he just got tired of it because he was in the Air Force, and he just had to drink so much water he grew tired of it. But I mean, that would be a great true or false question because I would have gone with true, and Griffin just told me false. So
Yeah.
I don't know if that's necessarily intimidating, but here's okay. I want to get nerdy on a stat question for one moment here. What is the go-to stat these days for relievers? Not for indicators, but more to show productivity. I'm curious. Like, is it strand percentage? Does ERA plus play? Which yours was insane this past season. You know, like what's a stat that you look at? Because I think sometimes ERA for relievers can get, pretty wonky depending on what happened with, somebody that came in after you or whatever.
Yeah, for sure. ERA is one of those ones you kind of got to like throw over your shoulder as a reliever, just because if you have one bad game or week, like your ERA can be torched. So FIP's definitely important for that. Kind of like you guys know, it kind of takes the randomness out of the game. I mean, out of the stat. Strand percentage is huge. I think punch out rate, K percentage is ginormous. Like you need to, especially as a back end guy, you got to be punching guys out. Let's see, what else is important? I mean, whiff percentage, chase, all that stuff that just kind of shows like how good your stuff is in the middle of the zone. And if they're missing strikes, if they're swinging missing strikes, you got good stuff.
all right, what about holds? Because we've had relievers come on here and say, well, if I'm not getting saves, I need holds. So is hold something that you look at and say, all right, I got a hold here?
Yeah, I mean, for me, because if I'm not getting saves, then that's sort of like the next best thing. But we all know that holds aren't as valuable as saves.
True.
Fair.
True.
That's what you get paid for.
That's why you don't get an entrance, and the closer does. That's it.
That's right. That's what I need.
Need an entrance to get paid. It'll come up in arbitration. Why does this guy not have a cool song or cool entrance? Well, we shouldn't pay him as much. That's what they're going to hold it
Settled.
in
It's settled that. Yeah. They settled.
All right. So tell us what was going through your mind, the feelings that you had on September 11th with your family, with the flyover, with everything that happened in that game. How cool was that for you?
It was incredible. I mean, that was probably one of the most nervous games I've ever pitched in, just because I had so much family there. It was almost like my debut again. But I think I was just more nervous for my brother, who on that picture, he's to my right, to the right of my wife. And just to experience that, not only like as a fan, but as a player on the field was really special. And then this video is my other brother, his twin, who flies a different plane, but threw out the first pitch. So it was just a really surreal moment, big day for my family. And I don't know if I'll ever experience something like that ever again on the field.
So wait, are you the only loser brother that doesn't fly planes? I mean, what
that
happened
was
to
my
you?
that was my joke at one of my brother's weddings. I hadn't gotten called up yet, and they're both badass pilots, and I'm kind of like the runt of the family. Like I'm just a minor league pitcher at this point. So now I can say it's a little different, but 5-6 years ago, that was my joke.
Who's a
What
cooler
was your
job
thing
now?
in the airport?
Say that again.
Who has a cooler job?
Out of my two brothers?
No, between you or your two brothers. Being a fighter pilot or being a big leaguer?
Oh man, I mean, if you ask those guys, they think pilots are just as egotistical as Major League Baseball players are. So they're kind of like the alpha dogs of the military. So they would definitely say them, and I will agree. Like what they do day in day out, like is not for the weak. Like you're deploying from your family for months, sometimes years. Like you're in danger zones, you're getting shot at. So it'd be wrong to not say that they got a harder job.
Okay, so two things. What did you do in the Air Force? If you're not a pilot, what was your role in the Air Force since you went to the Air Force Academy?
Yeah, I had just a very unique upbringing in the military. So to make a long story short, when I went to the academy, the ruling was anybody that gets drafted or professional contract gets a chance to go play pro and sort of delay their service. So that was the understanding that I had. It comes to the point where I get drafted. Twins knew that. I'm about to walk across the stage, and I get told, hey, you got to do a minimum of 2 years service. So at that moment, I had no idea like what the future held, if baseball was even going to be a possibility after that. Because you guys know, taking 2 years off of, regardless, like it's just incredibly hard to come back after that. So for a minute of time after that, they had me doing like secretary stuff for my colonel. I was planning holiday parties. I was even P monitor for a little bit in my unit, because I didn't have like a real Air Force job or a title, so they just didn't really know what to do with me. So they were kind of just throwing, some BS jobs at me. And thankfully, like 7 months later, they told me that I was going to be released and be able to go play and resume pro ball.
Got it. Nice. So, all right. So what are your brothers? What's your family's call signs? Sorry, Eric. What's your family's call sign?
Oh.
What's your call sign going to be? I mean, listen, as a veteran of a Blue Angels flight, I mean, they made a call sign for me. It was didn't pass out or didn't vomit.
Yeah.
So what are your brothers and your sister-in-law's call sign, and what would your call sign be?
So I only know one of my brother's call signs, and it's an acronym. I forget what it stands for. I mean, what the letters are, but it's the story behind it. Like call signs have stories behind them, and his call sign, whatever it is, I can't remember, is basically because he adopted a dog when he was in Korea, and as soon as he adopted that dog, the previous owner died like the next day. So I believe it's MAD, M-A-D, and it stands for Murdering Asian Dudes. And his wife, who flies the same plane, the F-35, her call sign's Goldie, because she Peter Pans in the cockpit in the air.
All right.
There's so many. Wait, does that fall under your duties as P monitor? Somebody that peed their pants in the cockpit? Because you said you were P monitor. Did I hear you right?
I was basically CDT. I was going in the bathroom with him, making sure like, hey, there's no foul play here on your drug test, that kind of stuff.
You were that guy. You're the guy that would come
they
to
didn't
my
have
house.
anything else for me to do, so they were giving me all the jobs that no one wanted to do. I had to buy snacks for everybody. I had, it was a rough 7-8 months.
Oh my gosh. You were the guy from CDT that would show up at my house and call you, hey, are you home? Yes. All right, well, I'll be at your house in 30 minutes. Hope you ate breakfast.
Yes.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
The test monitor.
Basically.
Oh, man.
Yep.
I'm sorry for that.
Nobody's nicer to the test monitors than in MLB when they're coming to test kids for PEDs.
I understand.
Griffin, because you know the deal. Exactly. Well, that's a good way to finish. Hey, great to have you on. Really appreciate the time. Thanks for waiting for us for a little bit. Obviously, we got backed up with guests, but always great to have you, man. This was fun.
That's right. I appreciate you, fellas. Talk soon.
Appreciate you.
Thanks,
we'll see you in
Griffin.
Fort Myers. Griffin Jax, Minnesota Twins. Here we go. BetMGM win total for the Baltimore Orioles is set at 89.5. Ooh-wee. Sometimes you look at them and you're like, damn. This is a damn for me. This is a tough one.
They keep getting harder.
Yeah, I'm going under.
I think they'll win 90, so I'm going to go over.
87 for me. Kratz? Over?
Over. I got them at a 92, 93 team. And I know that's tough in the American League East. American League East wants to continue to do good. We can't forget where we were with the Orioles before last season. We're very jaded in the last half a season. And maybe that's who they are. And maybe I'm wrong with the Orioles. I got them over.
The division might be pretty annoying. I mean, obviously the Yankees are good.
We just don't know we're getting out of the Rays. The Blue
Yeah,
Jays are
but the
where they
Rays will
are.
have better pitching. The Blue Jays, I think, are going to be a better team than they were
Red
this
Sox
past
should
season.
be better.
Red Sox are going to be better. That's a better team for multiple reasons. Pitching got better. Prospects are coming. So I think by that process alone, it could be trouble. The thing with the Orioles was, damn, they were off to such a freaking fire start last year, but it fell off for them in the offense. It'll pick back up, but the pitching worries me. The starting pitching worries me. It's okay. I go under. You guys go over, I go under.
I said 90. It's close, though.
Right.
I said 90. That's over.
And to me, when you say 90, that means there are enough other...
That means don't touch it.
Exactly.
That means if I'm betting Scott's money, I'm not touching it.
Don't touch it. Thank you so much for being careful with my money. And if you'd like to use our code FOUL, if you're signing up new and trying to get involved with some of these win totals, then the bonus code is FOUL, FOUL, when you sign up and deposit at least $10 into your BetMGM account.
Scott,
Place your wager.
$10.
No problem. Actually, you owe me yesterday because I gave you beef jerky. Place your first wager, receive up to $1,500 back in bonus bets if the bet loses. If that bet does fall, your bonus bets will be available once your initial wager is settled. Gambling problem or concern, call 1-800-GAMBLER. You know who needs $10? Pirates owner Bob Nutting.
Oh, jeez.
The CEO said he cares about winning. All right, let's do two things quick here.
Quick.
Everyone give a quick thought on Pirates CEO Travis Williams saying that Bob Nutting really cares about winning. And they have a bottom 5 payroll each season since 2018. And Mark Cuban called him out for profiting tens of millions of dollars. But here is my spin on it. I don't feel bad for the CEO, but isn't it kind of annoying that you have to spend your whole life just defending like muck? I don't know. That would be a tough job for me.
You mean Dave Cabal, the A's?
Right. But how's his legacy? How's he known?
He gone.
I mean, he's a clown. So I don't know. That's a tough job for me. That'd be a tough job. Okay. I wouldn't be able to do it.
It would be a short job for you. That's for sure. You wouldn't
I'd
last
get fired
very long.
in 5 seconds. I would not last long. No. All right. Next up, on a more fun note, Baseball America hot sheet the other day went over the battle for number 1 prospect, and we learned who that prospect is. It is Roki Sasaki. They rarely have a number 1 prospect as a pitcher. So they just released their top 100, and we have a little soundbite from the debate on Anthony versus Sasaki.
The reason that Roki Sasaki could be number 1 in our top 100 is we don't see players like this very often. We don't see pitchers like this very often who are as this well-rounded at this age. In the case of Roki Sasaki, I would say even like we've compared him to Paul Skeens last year. In hindsight, maybe Paul Skeens should have been our number 1 last year. We were scared of it, in part because of the pitcher, but in part because some of those steps forward he made, we didn't really get to see until 2025. He added pitches, he improved his repertoire, and that's kind of another part of pitching. In the case of Sasaki, we have a guy here who has 2 basically near top of the scale pitches at his best, fastball and a splitter. He has a slider that I think Jeff and I both agree, could probably improve. It's already reasonably effective. Knows how to pitch, and it's really not a finished product, but it's a product that at this age could be really effective, even if he's not a fully finished product yet.
Hey, Baseball America's Top 100 is here. Red Sox fans should be pretty excited because Roman Anthony's 2, Christian Campbell's 4. If you want to learn about the rest of the list, then get yourself a little Baseball America subscription, okay? And you can do that with a discount, 30% off the first year of any annual subscription if you scan the QR code that's on your screen right now and use the promo code FT at checkout over at baseballamerica.com. They work their tails off to put this stuff together. You've got the handbook, the almanac, the whole thing, but also just for online access to see the whole list. Super cool. I'm a nerd on this stuff, and we have the show on the Baseball America YouTube channel. All right, FT fam, be right back for Slap. So Cubs owner Tom Ricketts was saying that, he's basically getting unfair criticism from fans. He said, when I have a fan come up and say, hey, you're cheap, open your wallet or something like that, I just think they're misinformed. They think somehow we have all these dollars that the Dodgers have or the Mets have or the Yankees have, and we just keep it, which isn't true at all. What happens is we try to break even every year, and that's about it. Does anyone believe that?
Show us the books.
Don't we play this game every year?
Show us the books.
Remember John Angelos? He's
Show us the books.
John Angelos goes, I'll show you the books.
He never did.
He never showed the
Show
books.
us the books. The Braves have to show you the books.
How are
They're
the Braves
public.
doing? How did
Braves
the
are doing
do?
great. And they're still making a bunch of money.
Google the Braves and look up their profit margin this past year. Okay, you can literally buy stock in the Braves. Look up how much money they made in profits. Okay, and now there's one other game that we like to inform people about because most shows won't, and we're actually very privy to this information. Most teams will own lots of things based on their prime real estate, which is the team they own and the real estate that they own or at least have a deal with the city for. They then start to buy hotels, restaurants, you name it, right?
This is a great tweet, by the way.
Third most expensive game day experience in MLB. You own your TV network, massive fan base, merch, sportsbook attached, the neighborhood, the whole thing. If you're breaking even, you're a terrible businessman.
It's true.
Teams like this are making wads of cash for sure with all of the assets built around the franchise. Again, we are not going off hearsay. The Atlanta Braves have to publicly report how
Derek
much they're
said they
crushing
made $291 million this year through November.
Okay, well, I need to see the source.
But no,
that's probably a number out there.
That's probably not including what they spent on the back end. That's
Okay.
probably just their
Just the player salaries.
Just the net. No, that would be net gross profits.
Whatever. The number's big. I'm not going to play the numbers game and act like I know the exact
Yeah.
number. Nobody. Well,
Yeah.
the accounting does. But they're doing fine. The Braves are doing freaking
If the
fantastic.
Ricketts were not making money, they would sell the Cubs for what, $3 billion?
If you owned a team that was bleeding money and you couldn't withstand it, wouldn't you sell the team? Let's slap. Trying to answer more people that ask us things on social media in general. We posted about our biggest offseason winners and losers. Someone named Master Pete wrote back, how are Padres not on that list? I mean, it's an incomplete for them too. They just haven't done anything yet.
Yeah,
I think they're going to do something. AJ Preller is probably going nuts because he is a mover and shaker. And he's like, can I make a move yet, please? Good team, though. I will say the Padres ended the season for many as the number one team on the power rankings, and they might have won the World Series if they won that one game. It's really what seasons come down to is that one moment, that one game where they could have taken down the Dodgers. Don't you guys think that they would have beaten the Yankees?
Or
We'll
if they
never
had
know.
kept Soto.
As Alex Bregman said, I guess we'll never know.
Kratz hats, what do you got?
Possibly new expansion team. Say you A's, Salt Lake City, the Bees. AJ's stomping ground. He's probably the de facto mayor there.
I was the Buzz, though. I wasn't the Bees. I was the Buzz. Salt Lake City Buzz.
That's right. You said that.
I know you guys say that I don't like talking about other sports, and most of it has to just do with me not paying attention to it anymore because you guys take up all of my time. But I do occasionally watch other shows. I started a show, American Primeval, just had me thinking about Utah. It's about Wild West Utah stuff. It's really good. It's on
God, this is a
Netflix.
baseball show. This is a baseball show.
Yeah. How dare you talk about other things, Scott?
Oh, man.
Have you heard of Yellowstone, Scott?
Yes, I've heard of it.
Okay, just
It's a
checking.
national park, right?
You heard of Wyatt Earp, Scott?
Of what?
Wyatt Earp?
No, that one I don't know.
Never heard of that guy?
Tombstone.
No. Is he in Yellowstone? I don't watch that show.
Doc Holliday?
Kurt Russell?
I'm your Huckleberry.
Bill Russell?
Bill Russell?
All right. Have a goofy rest of your, what is
Oh,
it?
wait, big game tonight.
Wednesday.
Guess who Florida plays tonight?
No
Who?
idea.
The Cox.
Cares.
Word of the day.
Hmm?
I said word of the day.
They play out South Carolina.
Wasn't the diciest thing said on the show today. Oh man.